All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today is Monday, September 28th, 2020. And we are on episode 6 of our People of the Lie review series. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Montana. Hello, New York. Hello, Detroit. Looks like you guys are having some bad weather out that way. I'm sorry to hear that. I won't mention my weather then, so as not to brag. Welcome, you guys. I'm glad you guys are joining. I will move quickly because it's my understanding that the first presidential debate is tonight. So that should be interesting. I'm going to attempt to watch that. I'm going to attempt to stomach that. If for no other reason, pure entertainment value. So yeah, apparently that's happening at 9 o'clock. So I'm going to try to move quickly so we can tune into that if that's what everyone's going to be watching. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Hello. It could be tomorrow. Someone told me. So I just briefly glanced, but we'll see. Either way, I'm going to try to wrap before 9, just in case it is tonight. Welcome, everybody. How's everyone doing? I hope you guys are doing okay. Welcome to the live stream. We are moving on in our book review of People of the Lie, The Hope for Healing Human Evil by M. Scott Peck. Excuse me, this is the 6th installment of the series that I thought would be 3 months, but it's very clear this is going to be another year-long series. Why? Because we are still in chapter 3 of the book. So if you do some quick math, it should kind of tell you where we are and where we will be in the future. Welcome to everybody. As always, we will have the same disclaimers every time. This series is dealing with evil and spirituality and religion. So if you consider yourself atheist or atheistic, you may not find this appealing. However, I highly encourage you to watch anyway, because I guarantee you will still find something, even if you just kind of take out all the spirituality, religion, and what have you. So I encourage you to watch anyway. You are still invited. Also, this deals with some heavy psychological content. And it has the potential to be very triggering for you, okay? Unfortunately, I can't make myself available as a one-on-one resource. We do have a resource available to us in the form of BetterHelp. You can log on to that URL there on your screen. If you sign up, you can get 10% off of your membership using that code there on the screen, permission to exist. And yes, it does kick back to the channel a small benefit when you do that. So we do have a resource. A few people have taken advantage of it so far. So I do hope that they are finding that beneficial, okay? So that said, let's move on. Again, this is the book we're reviewing. If you're new or if you're just now getting caught up to all of this, you can still order the book and catch up. We're only in chapter 3. So some people have finished it already. Some people are kind of pacing themselves along with us. So you do still have time to get caught up. Highly recommend you get your own copy because I'm only taking bits and pieces. Obviously, the meat and potatoes is in the book. You can find a link to this book in the description box, and that will support the channel as well. So, you guys, let's move on to our content for the evening. Tonight, we are talking about The Odd Couple. And I'd kind of like to start off this segment with the story of an odd couple that I knew, and I will change their names for the sake of anonymity, but let me write down the fake names so I don't accidentally say the real names. Let's see, I'm going to call her Susan. Sorry to all my Susans. I know I have quite a few Susans that watch, and I'm going to call him Bill. And I'm just going to have to keep those names right there so I don't accidentally say the real name. But here's how I met this couple. I had just started a new job, kind of as like an administrative assistant. We'll just say that. And Bill worked at this office, and his wife, Susan, worked there as well. Well, on my very first day there, it was myself, Bill, and Susan. in the office, just the three of us. And Bill was in the process of training me, showing me what I'd be doing every day. And Susan asked him a question or asked him for something. And I remember he said to her, Susan, I don't know. I don't know where it is. And she picked a stapler up and threw it at his head. And he ducked like he was used to ducking. Okay. And it was then that I knew that I had gotten myself into a very unique situation. Okay. So I tell that story to say, keep Bill and Susan in your mind as we move through this next couple that closes. Actually, no, this doesn't close out chapter 3. They're like in the middle of chapter 3. Then we have one more segment after that, then we're through. But keep Bill and Susan and the flying stapler in your mind as we move through this segment. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So chapter 3 picks up with the case of Hartley and Sarah. Okay. So I highly encourage you, if you have the book, obviously to read it. But if you don't have the book, consider getting it, because I'm actually going to leave out quite a few details in the name of keeping the stream monetized. There's a few topics that YouTube doesn't particularly care for. So I'm going to actually leave those out so I don't have to take the monetization off this stream. But Hartley and Sarah were an adult couple. Hartley had recently been hospitalized for some incidents, we'll say. And they had been referred to the doctor, who is the author of the book, for further treatment, okay? Immediately upon observing the conversations or reading the conversations, you see that Hartley has been, I wrote neutered, but the doctor actually used the term castrated, and we'll get into that. He was very clearly scared to be without his wife, Sarah, okay? He had some recurring invasive thoughts, intrusive thoughts that I won't repeat, but they were very disturbing. If anyone said to you, these are the thoughts that I've been thinking just when I wake up first thing in the morning. So that was part of the reason he had to go see the doctor. Sarah would often speak for him, speak over him. She often downplayed his achievements. Whenever he would kind of pipe up with some sort of achievement, she kind of downplay it a bit. The doctor flat out asked her, do you think that, the doctor asked Hartley, do you think you're angry? He didn't think he was angry, but Sarah was like, oh, he hates me. So that kind of speaks to how they know. They know on some core level, surface or deeper, they know. Okay. She even called him a weakling during the course of this interview. And as the interview goes on, you start to discover that Sarah is deeply unwell herself. Okay. So that is the high level summary. I don't want to give more detail because, again, I want to keep the stream monetized. Please read it for yourself if you want the full gist of what occurred. Oh, Hartley. I kept saying Hartley. Is it Hartley or Hartley? Hold on. Did I leave a T out? Let's see. Now I have to know. It is Hartley. Sorry. I left a T out on the screen. It is Hartley and Sarah. So let's get into the content. That's the setup. Older couple. One is really going through some mental health, like a mental health crisis. His wife is like his crutch, and it kind of unfolds from there. So let's take it from there, okay? So this is on page 114. The doctor says to Sarah, are you aware that every single time I try to focus on whatever assets your husband might have, you jump in and castrate him? So I thought this was interesting because it's one of those very subtle ways that narcissists inflict violence upon you, but you would never quite notice, and it's hard to pinpoint. So to kind of fast forward a bit, by the end of it all, you say, oh, well, no wonder Hartley ended up in the mental health hospital, or no wonder Hartley did what he did, because look who he lives with. Pretty much every sentence, every word out of his mouth is undercut or chopped at the knees. So it's like every time some sense of self-worth or dignity or pride bubbles up, his wife had something to just chop him, just like pop the bubble, basically. Like, oh, don't you get excited. Don't you go over there growing self-esteem. Took care of that little self-esteem bubble. And it's gradual and it's very unique because it's so subtle. So I was really happy that the doctor called this out in the course of their meetings. Like, are you aware that every time I try to focus on whatever assets your husband might have, you jump in and castrate him? The example in the book was that Hartley started to reflect on a really, really strong sales year he had where he made $20,000 in commission. And the wife essentially goes, oh, honey, anyone in that industry that year would have made $20,000 in commission. It was a strong year for that part. People all over the country were making that kind of money. In other words, it wasn't your talent or your gifts or your unique drive that earned you that $20,000 in commission. Everyone all over the country was earning that. So you're not special. You're not important. Don't get excited about yourself. So essentially, this woman, by virtue of everything she had said to him or says to him, chips away at his self-esteem every time he opens his mouth. Okay? So let's continue. This is on page 115. I wrote, when evil is honest, okay? Because the doctor starts kind of pressing Sarah, about her real feelings about Hartley and his impact on her life. And at some point, she just says, perhaps you're right, doctor. Hartley's illness has been a terrible burden on me. It would be much easier for me if he didn't exist. And I said, wow. Wow, just flat out. I'm telling you, sometimes if you just let the narcissist speak long enough, if you can get over the habit of interrupting and jumping in and cutting off, which is rude anyway, if you can just get into the habit of just sitting back and just letting them speak, this is the kind of stuff that will come out of their mouths eventually. Yeah, it would be much easier for me if he didn't exist. And I do wonder how many of you who grew up in homes with narcissistic parents have heard some variation of this before, right? And even the doctor kind of cringed when she said that in the book. So the whole point kind of this whole series and of this book is that evil and evil people don't always look like the scary criminal or, the picture that media and movies and entertainment has painted as evil, the psycho who lives in the woods. You know what I mean? Evil can be as simple as someone sitting on the couch telling you to your face, yeah, it would be much easier for me if you didn't exist. She didn't touch him. She didn't yell. She didn't raise her voice. Do you understand? She didn't steal anything from him other than some self-esteem and self-worth, but those aren't quantifiable. You can't measure those really. So for all intents and purpose, she didn't do anything to him. Do you see? This is why this type of analysis is so important. Someone expressed a concern on my last video, the things I would tell my son, where we analyze the entitled housewife. They said they're concerned with the microanalysis. And my general response is that this microanalysis is what's needed. This is what we haven't been doing. And look at our society now. We only always look at the surface. We like to look at the surface level, surface layer. We don't like to go any deeper than the surface layer. And as a result, our society is in shambles. And the reason is because, excuse me, processes and functions go down to their most basic unit. And I'm sure there's a way to express that in science or physics. I just don't know how. But basically what I'm saying is your whole, like, for example, your whole entire body goes down to one cell. Like it can all be traced back to one cell is what I'm saying. So you don't have to care about your cells. You don't have to. You can only care about what you can see. But eventually the lack of care about what you can't see is going to destroy what you can see. So to keep with the analogy of the body, you can pretend like your inner body doesn't exist. You can pretend like you don't have organs. You can pretend like you don't have bones, blood. You see what I mean? You can pretend that you don't have any of those things, but in your pretending you don't have them, you're probably neglecting them in some way. And eventually, maybe not immediately, but eventually your neglect of what you can't see and your neglect of the micro is going to affect the macro every time. Your neglect of the micro is going to affect the macro every time. So that's why we do the micro analysis, because everyone only focuses on macro and then wonder why things cave in. Well, honey, the nails were rusty, but you didn't want to look at the nails. You only wanted to look at the sheetrock and everything on the outside. You never explored the guts, the innards, and as a result, the whole thing caved in. Let's continue. So I thought this was interesting. I thought this spoke to those weird hidden motivations that narcissists and other evil people often have. And the doctor says to Sarah, perhaps you're trying to make Hartley that infant you couldn't have. I was like, dang, they hit hard in old school therapy. I feel like they wouldn't be allowed to say this in our super PC culture of 2020. I feel like a therapist wouldn't be allowed to say this to a woman. But back then, he just went right for it. He said, perhaps you're trying to make Hartley that infant you couldn't have, right? And that could be the case. And it makes me think of when the narcissist indeed does try to trap you in different ways or tries to capture you. There's another word I used. I think I even did a video on it and it's escaping me right now. Possess. When narcissists try to possess you, you don't really always know why that is. Some of them might be trying to make you the child they never had. Some of them might be trying to make you their stand-in or their artificial spouse. Some of them might be trying to make you their stand-in or artificial parent. You see? Some of them might be trying to make you like a stand-in sibling. Do you see what I mean? The motivations are weird and they're often hidden. Okay. So this was the doctor kind of calling her out, because what the doctor started to see was this woman, as it says on the next slide, is actually getting more fulfillment out of this marriage than she cares to think. This is on 116. It says your needs are being fulfilled by this strange marriage just as much as his are. And that brings me back to my opening story of Susan and Bill. Susan, the one who threw the stapler at Bill on the job, we're at work, right in front of me. So I can only imagine what actually goes on in their house on a day-to-day basis. But it brings me back to that story because I remember initially feeling like, wow, poor Bill, because he really was a man who had been completely stripped of, life force, I guess you could say. And here's this woman who clearly needs to be in somebody's jail or institution. And clearly, like, she runs him, right? And she's clearly domestically violent. She's throwing things at him in front of someone they just met, right? So I remember feeling really, really sorry for Bill initially, until I got to see Bill in action with the customers. I won't say exactly what industry it was. Just know that we had a lot of face-to-face interaction with customers on a very private level, but not like healthcare or anything. Sorry, I can't go into more detail. Just trying to protect identities. Just know we had a lot of interaction with customers at somewhat of a private level, right? And I would sit back and just watch him lie to these people. Lie. Just lie. Like they would come in furious sometimes because of something he promised them 2 weeks ago that hadn't come into fruition. So they show up furious because they've taken off work. They've made time to accommodate this person or these people that Bill told them was coming, like, oh, it was a disaster. Part of the reason I was hired was to try to bring the disaster into some form of order, because Bill would just promise anything to these people and not write it down, not document it, nothing. So they needed somebody there to try to bring some element of order and customer service back to this place. Okay, it was a mess. Anyway, the point is, here I am feeling sorry for Bill. He just got a stapler thrown at his head. But then I got to watch him interact with customers, and I would sit back and watch how he would just lie. It would just roll off the tongue. It would just flow. And when they left, I would be like, Bill, they're not coming back for 3 weeks. And he'd be like, yeah, I know. I just, And I'm like, so do you think they're not going to come back up here yelling in 3 weeks? It's okay, puppy. Do you think they're not going to come back up here screaming in 3 weeks? He'd be like, oh, well, we'll deal with it when it happens. So what's my point in telling you all that? My point is, these two were peas in a pod, Susan and Bill. She's psychotic, borderline probably. No sense of, hey, maybe I shouldn't throw the stapler at my husband's head in front of the new girl type situation. But he will lie. He lied like it was his second language, or his first. He told lies like lies were his first language and the truth was actually his second, or maybe even third language. You understand? So I began to see how they actually belong together. I really, really did. It all started to make sense. And that's kind of the point of this whole episode. Excuse the pup in the back. She thinks she's seen something, probably her own reflection. Let's continue. So here's something I thought was really, really funny, because we talked about this before on the channel, and I felt like this was a great example of it actually happening. So after the doctor confronted Sarah of Hartley and Sarah in the book, she kind of lost it temporarily. She went on a Fruit Loop, and we're going to take a look at that Fruit Loop. This was her reply to the doctor confronting her about her needs being fulfilled by this strange little weird marriage. And I'm going to attempt to read it how I think she said it. Okay. And I'm going to try to do it without laughing. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Sarah, I think your needs are being fulfilled by the strange marriage just as much as his are. Apples and oranges, doctor. Yes, apples and oranges. You can't compare Hartley and me. We're like apples and oranges. But you don't know which is which, do you? Am I the apple or am I the orange? Am I crinkly skinned or smooth skinned? Am I thick skinned? Yes, I guess I'm thick skinned. We have to be thick skinned against those who persecute us. You're the pseudoscience persecutors, but it's all right. I know how to handle the orange peelers and the apple slicers. The Lord loves me. We have power in heaven. You can think what you think, say what you say, but it's garbage. That's where they end up, isn't it? The orange peels and the apple slices in the garbage. And that's where all you pseudoscience persecutors will end up, in the garbage with all the other fruits. Man, see, y'all, this is really, truly why I could not be a therapist. I strongly considered it for a long time. I know there's people who wish I would go into it in a professional way so I could take clients, but y'all have to understand that I can't deal with this. Mentally, I cannot. Like, I couldn't sit there while she's talking about apples and oranges and orange peelers and is she crinkly skinned or smooth skinned? Honey, I can't. Like, I would be committing all my patients. Like, you need to be committed, Sarah. Sarah, I'm going to go ahead and end the interview because it's clear to me that you need to be committed. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do any service to you, honey. Like, to be honest with you guys, I really think there's a lot of stuff they just don't know how to fix. Like, if they knew how to fix this, what we're looking at on the screen, then I might consider it, because in my mind, I'd go, okay, she's going on a Fruit Loop. I know how to correct Fruit Loops, right? I don't think you can correct Fruit Loops. I don't think you can really, truly correct the mind that does this. especially after being confronted, because she hadn't gone on a Fruit Loop until the doctor confronted her directly. You understand? So as soon as you're confronted, you go spiraling on Fruit Loops. I can't. There's not enough money in the world. It's okay, baby. Okay, so this is a great example of just, wow, how it just slides all over the place, how it's bringing in like different things that nobody said, arguments with people who kind of sort of aren't there in the room, but kind of sort of are. Like, it's just outstanding. So I thought, I thought that this was a really great example of a Fruit Loop. Word salad, as some of you guys have said in the chat. Yes, word salad. And again, I do believe narcissists do this on purpose a lot, but y'all, I honestly believe a lot of this is natural. This is organic to them. This is how their mind is. This is why you can't get anywhere with them. They don't think in clear, straight lines. And when they feel threatened, this is what comes out. So I can't. They don't pay enough money. They don't have therapists for the therapist, okay, to go talk about this Fruit Loop that they just dealt with. I digress and move on. Page 117. So he brings up this topic of thraldom, okay? And the definition of thraldom is the state of being in someone's power. And it doesn't say this in the dictionary, but I think the other part of this definition is and liking it. So the state of being in someone's power and liking it is what I'm kind of getting, is kind of implied. But on page 117, it says, the theme of thraldom is not infrequent in fairy tales and myths in which princes and princesses and other beings have become captive to the evil power of some wicked witch or demon. Okay? So they're enthralled. It's almost like they're under a spell, basically. So I know that you guys have seen this somewhere in your life where someone you know or knew, either directly or passively, ends up in a relationship with someone and you're just like, how? I just don't see it. I just don't get it. They don't match. They don't make sense together. Like, the pairing makes no sense at all. I don't understand. One of them is enthralled, okay? And you know this has happened to you before. If you met somebody, were completely swept off your feet, and then somewhere along the lines, you feel like the rose-colored glasses came off and you see them in a completely different light, that means that you were enthralled from the very beginning. You were in a state of thraldom. You were under a spell. And when the spell wears off, you're like, oh my God, I let you touch me? So, as he pointed out in page 117, this is a theme that's frequent in fairy tales and myths. And the soft-hearted one becomes captive to someone wicked, basically. It's a theme that occurs over and over again. So this is when we start to get into the subject of power, okay? So let's talk about power in this whole entire dynamic. This is also on page 117. It says he had voluntarily sold his soul into Sarah's keeping. Why? And we talked about this before, a couple live streams ago. And I think the name of those streams, I think I did 2 parts. I'm not sure, maybe not, but it was called Work and Die. And it was essentially talking about how so many people have voluntarily sold their souls to their jobs and voluntarily sold their souls to their corporations. They don't even realize it because they like it. That's what thraldom is. You have your soul in someone else's safekeeping and you like it. You like it there. You want it to be there. You wouldn't even know what it feels like to have it back to yourself again. That's how long it's been gone. And then that's how much you've given it over, okay? So I thought this was a very powerful question. He had voluntarily sold his soul into Sarah's keeping, but why though? So here's where it starts to hit and hurt, right? This doctor doesn't hold back. He doesn't coddle. He doesn't try to make you feel like you don't have a role in this. Like we don't have a role in these evil entanglements. Now, hear me clearly. Children are powerless. So if you're a young person under the age of 18 listening to this, please hear me. I'm not blaming you. There's nothing you can do. You can't escape right now. But you better start saving that money up so you can escape once you hit 18 so you can get out, right? But as we start to get older, and I'm also speaking of people who are fully independent, meaning you don't have any particular physical or mental handicaps, I guess you could say. I apologize if that's not the correct term, politically correct. You don't have anything that's actually restricting you from full independence. For all intents and purposes, you are a healthy, fully independent human being. The older we get, the more some of this stuff starts to become voluntary, okay? And that's so hard to hear. It's so hard to hear, but it's so true. And we'll talk about this more. But this is the doctor's analysis of Hartley. He said a passive person means an inactive person, a taker instead of a giver, a follower instead of a leader, a receiver instead of a doer. So when we reflect on Hartley's story, yes, he's been neutered and castrated. Yes, he, is pretty much impotent without his wife by his side. But at the same time, what the doctor was saying was Hartley's totally fine with that. And as a matter of fact, he called him dependent, infantile, and lazy is what he called Hartley. He said Hartley was monumentally lazy. So it's like, it's very easy to feel sorry for him, this grown adult male who's been harped on by his wife to the point where he is just a shell of his former self. But at the same time, we have to take responsibility for our piece of the puzzle. And what the doctor was basically saying was Hartley just won't even take initiative for his own life. He's handed his life over to Sarah. You understand? So furthering that thought, it says he would not even come into my office alone, much less take the risk or exert the energy to think independently for himself. So in other words, if we had to phrase this in other words, he was saying that Hartley is perfectly fine being Sarah's adult baby, is what he was basically saying. He's totally fine with it. He likes it. He enjoys it. Okay. And it's a tough pill to swallow because he really truly has been beat down mentally and emotionally. But understand, he doesn't have any health issues restricting his free movement. He doesn't have any legal issues restricting his free movement. And he really is free to separate himself from this situation. The doctor is implying that he chooses not to. Okay. So furthering that thought again, this is still on page 118. It says, we can postulate that by the time he met Sarah, he was already a profoundly lazy person, a child in adult's clothing, who was unconsciously seeking the strong mother he never had to take care of him. Ooh. Ouch. Right? So how many ladies have perhaps potentially come across this? And it could be looked at in the reverse too. A woman looking for the father figure, strong father she never had. But we're talking, keeping it in context. How many ladies have come across this situation? A grown adult male who appears to want a mother more than he wants like a partner and a spouse. You want a mom. And one of my favorite things to say is, I'm not your mom. I'm not your mom. Not your mama. I'm not. Right? And I feel like what happens to a lot of people, a lot of women in particular, but a lot of people is when we see this behavior, it's these moments of choice that shape our lives. Okay? Excuse me. When we see this behavior out of someone we're entertaining as a romantic partner, instead of us terminating the relationship, which is what we're supposed to do, A lot of us will let that relationship continue because we think it's going to improve or we think it's going to get better, and then it doesn't. And we wonder how we end up with these adult children all moved into the house, laid up in the bed, sprawled out on the couch, eating all the food in the refrigerator. How did this happen? It happened because you didn't cut it off the first time that you saw it. Or it happened because, okay, hold on. It happens for one of two reasons. It happens because either we don't have the courage to cut it off, or it happens because of what's on our screen right now. And it says, Sarah filled the bill perfectly, just as he undoubtedly met her requirements of a potential slave. So basically, he's looking for a mom and she was looking for a slave. They found each other and boom, match made in heaven, or really truly match made in hell, really. But a match nonetheless. A match is a match, is it not? She's looking for a slave. He's looking for a mother. They found each other. Boom. And now that you know that, next time you see these little odd couples, you can figure out what each other is looking for in the other. So here's the other thing too. You may have found yourself part of an odd couple before, but if you have enough, just enough dignity and self-worth to extricate yourself from these relationships, you will not develop into this full-blown Sarah and Hartley type situation. It'll never reach this level because you never let it get there. And that's what you're supposed to do, because hopefully you're not out here looking for a slave or a parent. Hopefully you're not out here looking for either one, right? So if you accidentally happen to find yourself in either role, like, uh-oh, I think he thinks I'm his slave, or uh-oh, I think he thinks I'm his mother, try to work it out. I'm a strong advocate for using words and trying to sort something out. But if that doesn't work, you have to end that relationship or you'll end up like Sarah and Hartley. You will. And now when you see these little strange couplings here, there, and everywhere, you'll know that some power dynamic is going on. Somebody wants to be a slave and somebody wants to be that person's mom or dad. They love it. Let's move on this topic. So this someone in a comment or a chat a couple live streams ago referred me to this channel, and he did a video on this topic a while ago, or no, excuse me, like a couple days ago, like 5 or 6 days ago, called The Master Slave Dialectic and Our World Crisis. And I haven't finished it yet, so please forgive me. I don't know what all he says in this video. I cannot summarily endorse this video. I've really only heard like the first 10, 11 minutes. But he said something in it that I thought was very important and very relevant to the conversation that we're having. What he said was, initially, when it comes to power, the master has more power over the slave. Obviously, the master has the resources, the money to pay the slave if they're going to pay the slave, the power to punish the slave, things of that nature, right? So that's how it starts. However, what happens is, as time goes on, the master becomes lazier and lazier and lazier and more unskilled. So over time, the master doesn't know how to cook. The master doesn't know how to clean. The master doesn't know how to do his or her own laundry. The master doesn't know how to take care of their pets. The master doesn't know how to take care of the lawn and the garden. Over time, the people or the person who's developing all those skills are the slaves, or is the slave, depending on if we're talking about one or many. So ultimately, what happens is a shift in the power imbalance, because now the slave has complete control over your food because you don't know how to cook for yourself. You wouldn't even know if something is spoiled or not. The slave has complete control over your clothing, what you wear. They decide what you get to wear that day. They have complete control over how clean or dirty your house is, how clean or dirty your plates are, and on and on and on and on. And before you know it, the slave eventually has complete control over the master. If the slave knows how to whip up some sort of sleeping potion, they can make you sleep at will. Just put a little sleeping powder in your coffee. Night, night. Night, night. See you in 8 hours. You see, if they don't want you to look good for your little banquet, oh, sir, massa, sir, sorry, sir, that suit is dirty. This is the only clean one, sir. Would you like this one, sir? You see what I mean? Over time, the master loses their own autonomy to the slave. So initially, the slave gave up their autonomy to the master. Over time, the master gives up their autonomy to the slave. So I thought that was extremely interesting. And I thought it speaks to the circular nature of the relationship. Okay, so check that out. It is linked in the description box. Again, I haven't seen the whole video, so I don't know what all he says. He might go off the deep end midway through. I just heard those first few minutes and I thought they were very relevant to what we're talking about. Okay, so again, on page 118, once the relationship was established, it became a vicious circle, naturally intensifying the sickness of each. So in other words, when two dysfunctional people like this get together, if they don't break up, they make each other worse over time. So I know I said in a previous live stream, if you have trouble telling who's evil out of the pair, chances are they both are. Two peas in a pod. If you can't tell, there's probably some vicious circle or cycle feeding itself in that relationship to where they're both evil in their own unique respects. They really are. Because the healthy people flee sick relationships. You may have been tangled in one for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. But the important thing is you had the instinct to get out. You had the good sense to get out. You might have known something was wrong right away, but you didn't want to jump to conclusions. So but at some point you got out. At some point you had seen enough to know that this is not a healthy relationship and you got out. The people who stay, chances are they're both wicked. It just manifests and comes out in different ways. Okay, so let's keep going. It says her domination further encouraged his submissiveness, and his weakness further nourished her desire for power over someone. Okay, so we could even think back to that most recent live stream I did with the spoiled, entitled housewife. She was clearly very domineering and dominating. And that encouraged her husband's submissiveness, and his submissiveness further nourished her desire for power over someone. You see? So that's why he didn't call her out on her. I've been thinking about that video, y'all, since I did it. I have so much more to say on that video, like so much more to say on that topic. So I'll try not to deviate here and go off topic, but in other words, he loves it. He sees how she treats people, both inside their home and out, and he likes being dominated by her. He loves it, which is why he won't chastise her, won't correct her, and the most punishment he would have given her was withholding his credit card, which I'm sure she would have stomped and pouted her way into getting him to hand back over. You see, he loves it. So oftentimes you can feel sorry for people, feel sorry for the people who are sincerely trapped. So if they tell you their story and you can hear that they are sincerely trapped, that's who you can feel sorry for. But truly, there's always at least some way out. If you can't get out through a window or a door, see if you can get out through a vent or something. You see what I mean? Like, they should be planning some sort of strategy. It's not always easy to plan an exit strategy when you're super depressed and feel trapped, but you have to be thinking of some way to get out. And I haven't written a book in a while. I do have a couple books on the Amazon Kindle store. I haven't written a book in a couple of years, but I think I finally know the topic and subject of the next one I'm going to write. And I think I know the title too, and it's called Runaway Love. So yes, of course, it's inspired by the song. I know Mary J. Blige was on that song, but I forget. who else was? But it's runaway, comma, love, capital L. So in other words, it's like someone's saying to another person, run away, love, like run, like flee. Because in my ability and willingness to flee bad situations, I honestly feel that I have shaped my life for the better. When I reflect on friends and peers who like I went to high school with and came up through college with, and those peers who have been successful versus those peers who have not been so successful, the ones who have not been so successful are the ones who never ran away from something or never ran away from someone. They never ran away. They got trapped. So I think I have to flesh that idea out some more and see how I'm going to like present it. But I think that's going to be my next topic because I think it's so important, y'all. And I have a slide in here. It's coming up somewhere. It's coming up after this one. So this is on page 118. It says, we do not become partners to evil by accident. So we've kind of covered that already. And here's what I wanted to speak on. And this is what I was talking about. We are as much an end result of what we do as what we don't do. So our lives are as much a summary of what we do as what we don't do also. So that's something to kind of chew on, sit on, and meditate on, because often we're reflecting on the things that we've done, but there's also a lot of things that we don't do or shouldn't do that shape our lives as well. So that's kind of where I get that theme runaway love from. Like, our society is very much one of don't quit, give it your all, quitters never win, quitters never prosper. And I am here to challenge that notion, honey. I'm here to challenge it. I'm here to challenge it because truth be told, like if I never quit, then I would still be working like at my local grocery store in my hometown. Like still on like the first job I ever had. Like, nope, quitters never prosper. I'm going to stay right here in my 30s. Been working here since I was 16, 17 years old. Like, oh, I have so much to say on the topic. So that might be my next book. Just throwing it out there. I'm going to try to get one out for 2021 because it's been a couple years. Okay. But we are as much an end result of what we do as what we don't do. Keep that in mind. Okay. We have to prune. If there are any gardeners in the house or anyone who's ever gardened, you know the importance of pruning. You can't keep every branch. Some branches are dead. They need to be cut off because as long as they're there, the plant keeps trying to feed them and like take care of them, but they're a lost cause. They got to go. Or one's unhealthy and struggling. You can see that it's not going to revive. Chop it off. It has to go so the plant can live and thrive. Don't get me started on gardening analogies. Let's move on. Page 118 still. He mentions down in the, my English teacher would be so ashamed of me because I forgot what this part is called. It's the text that's underneath the main text. Is it subtext? What is it called, y'all? Caption? When the authors put like something unrelated but related underneath the main text. What is that little area called? Anyway, it's down there, okay? And he mentioned, now this is deep. This might be more for a deeper PTE and we might do that, but this is pretty deep. He mentioned something called syndrome of decay, okay? And laziness is a component of the syndrome of decay. So I looked up syndrome of decay. This article is linked in the description box. It's also there on your screen, although I doubt you would want to try to type all that in. The syndrome of decay is Fromm's term, footer, thank you, yes, or footnote, one or the other, yes, footer or footnote, thank you. So this is in the footnote. The syndrome of decay is Fromm's term for a malignant combination of incestuousness, narcissism, and necrophilia, the craving for death and destruction, and he considered someone with the syndrome evil since he betrays life and growth. Your example is Hitler, a man whose narcissistic solipsism and incestuous fixation with the purity of his race resulted in an orgy of death and destruction, though many who thrive on violence, hate, racism, and narcissistic nationalism suffer from this syndrome. So the main reason I wanted to bring this out, obviously there's much that could be brought out from this, is that it's like 3 or 4 lines down where it says evil since he betrays life and growth. We've talked about this before. It's my understanding that one of the interpretations of the word Christ is life, right? So if the word Christ means life, then antichrist means anti-life or against life. So evil people are against life and growth and development and change and progress. Evil people deeply desire to stifle and stagnate things and keep them in one place and not let them progress and grow into their fullness. They don't ever like to see things become all they can be. So they are literally against life. Evil people go against life itself. So when people hear that, automatically they just think in terms of like killing and murder and things like that. But there are other ways to go against life, you guys. There's many other ways to go against life. For example, working people 40 hours a week just to say you did it. You're not actually doing anything. You're only doing about 21 hours worth of work on a good week. But you have to keep them there and hold them there just to say we did it, right? When the pro-life thing to do would be to say, hey, let's work our 21 hours. Let's give ourselves a 2 or 3 hour buffer for things that pop up. And then let's release people back to their families and their homes and their children and their spouses and their pets and their neighborhoods. Let's not hold people here captive 40 hours a week and sometimes more than that. That goes against life. Don't get me started, you guys. Don't. We're almost done, okay, with this particular episode. But it's something to think about. He mentions it in the book, page 118 in the footer. He talks about the syndrome of decay, all right? And people who have the syndrome of decay betray life and growth. They want to see things wiped out, sometimes for no other reason than just to wipe it out. Don't even have a reason for it. Okay. So again, page 119, he reiterates that it seemed impossible to tell which partner of an evil couple was the evil one. Okay. So we've kind of nailed that point home, hit that home. All right. Where are we? Okay. We're almost done. We have 2 slides. Then we'll do a very brief after show so I can go release you guys to go watch your president debate. You know, I wasn't going to watch, but I actually have a little bit of wine. And I figure why not use that last little bit of wine I've got and just watch this madness unfold. Page 119, evil was defined as the use of power to destroy the spiritual growth of others for the purpose of defending and preserving the integrity of our own sick selves. In short, it is scapegoating. We scapegoat not the strong, but the weak. For the evil to misuse their power, they must have the power to use it in the first place. They must have some kind of dominion over their victims. Page 119. So I thought this was interesting. So in other words, evil won't try someone they view as powerful and strong. They only go after the weak or who they perceive to be weak. And as I was reflecting on this, I was like, I think this is why I have a lot of trouble out of evil, wicked people. Because like I've told you guys before, I don't have a very threatening presence at all. Like there's nothing about me that would frighten you, I don't think. Anyway, there's nothing that would frighten you. So I think when they see me, they're like, oh, look, a declawed little kitty cat. I'm going to go try to pick it up by its tail and hold it under my arm. And what they quickly discover is not only is she not declawed, she doesn't take kindly to being picked up by her tail and held under my arm. And I think it's upsetting to them because they thought they had one and they discover that they didn't or they don't. And it pisses them off because I really do believe they start to make all kinds of little plans for you in their head when they think they've got one. And then when they discover that they don't, it's infuriating. It's almost like if you went to the store, you think you're buying one brand because that's what the box says. And then you open the box and it's an entirely different brand. You're not going to be happy about that at all. So I think it's kind of the same situation. Some people match. Like some people are very scary and threatening on the outside and inside. So they match. Their look matches who they are. But there's a lot of us, I feel, who are very strong, but we don't look it. So it pisses the narcissist off when they move in all snake-like, trying to capture their victim or their target and discover, uh-oh, this kitty has all 4 sets of claws. And they haven't been trimmed down. They're completely sharp. You understand? That's annoying for them. That's irritating for them. They want someone who appears weak and also is weak so they can have their way. Do you understand? So I think this is why I irritate them and I get on their nerves. They just make an automatic assumption about me, never explore it any further, but they find out really quick as soon as they try to pick me up by the tail and tuck me under their arm. Okay, so let's move on to this last slide. And then we will do a very, very quick after show. And then I'll let you guys go watch this little silly debate. All right, last slide. It says, for adults to be the victims of evil, they too must be powerless to escape. Okay. So I know that might seem contradictory to everything that we just talked about, but the reason I put this one in here is because it made me think of the no contact crew or the no contact crowd who likes to come through on different videos and say, just go no contact, go no contact. Why go through all this? Just go no contact, go no contact, go no contact. You have to understand that there actually really are some people who are relatively powerless to escape. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a newlywed couple and they just got married in January, just bought a house in August, just got pregnant, going to have a baby in spring of next year. Families are involved. Everyone knows everyone. Parents know each other. They've gone on camping trips together. You know, holidays are always entangled. And like there's a lot of entanglement there. And then you discover that your spouse, just to keep it neutral, either your husband or your wife, is a malignant narcissist and they hid it very well until after the wedding. That's not very easy to walk away from, especially when you're deeply entangled. You bought a house on Meemaw Street. So you live down the street from his or her Meemaw, you know, and Meemaw's all excited because she's old and her grandkids get to live on the street with her. And everyone at the church thinks he or she is just the most phenomenal, amazing person they've ever met. Nothing but high regard, right? The families know each other. Oh, your moms and dads are obsessed with each other. They love each other. They hang out with each other. They leave y'all out. So his parents and her parents hang out and they leave the kids out. They just like each other, right? Deep entanglement. Y'all don't seem to really, I'm sorry, that came out wrong. What I was trying to say was, a lot of people don't seem to really understand how deep some of these entanglements go. It's not quite as surface. Like some people don't have that heavy of an entanglement with other people's families. Some people do. Like when some people get married, they truly get married and they marry their whole families, right? So how do you split that up? How do you escape that? Who do you tell? What would you say? I'm leaving my husband or I'm leaving my wife. They're a malignant, raging narcissist. And all they're going to tell you is go to church, talk to the pastor, pray about it. You'll be fine. Every marriage has hard spots, bumps and bruises. You'll be fine. You're no different. So In other words, what I'm trying to say is there are people out there who can only scream quietly in their heads because currently they are too deeply entangled to get out, way too entangled to get out. What do you do when you marry someone at work? And what if you're both kind of high ranking? You're both VPs. So two VPs met and they fell in love. How beautiful, right? She's just a VP of a different division. He's a different division. So there's no conflict of interest per se. But you know how that goes. Barbecues, picnics, hangouts, all these after work events, deep entanglement. And then you get the families involved. That's deeper entanglement. Some people are so deeply wound with someone else that escaping them almost appears to be an impossible thing. And for some people, it kind of is impossible. So it's just something to keep in mind that there are real victims out here. I try to work very hard to keep myself out of those kinds of entanglements. Okay. It's a skill and a gift, entanglement avoidance. I do think it needs to be like an Olympic category, the avoidance of complex entanglements. I would like some recognition for yes, I would, because I'm pretty skilled at staying out of them, right? But some people have unfortunately found themselves in them. So it's just something to keep in mind. Yes, we do often play part in ending up in these situations, but there are some people who are in them who are true victims who cannot get out. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps kind of clarify the difference between the two. So what I always typically say is if you can get out, get out. If you can. Big if. Because there's a lot of people who don't have that if option, guys. They really don't. So keep that in mind, okay? But if they trust you and you guys actually have an opportunity to be away from whoever the narc is, help them strategize. If you escaped and you see someone who's trapped and kind of entangled, don't be pushy about it, but just always offer them little bits and pieces of how you escaped your entrapment or your entanglement. Okay? So with that, you guys, we are done with episode 6, The Odd Couple, People of the Lie, The Hope for Healing Human Evil. We are moving through it. This is definitely going to be another year-long book. So why don't we? It's tomorrow. I see. And it was your note who made me think that it was tonight. Now that's hilarious. It's tomorrow. Okay, guys, sorry. The debate's tomorrow. I'm going to put the sole blame on your shoulders, sir. But that's okay. It's okay because it made me focus and cruise through the content. And hey, it's only been about an hour. So we'll do a quick after show, you guys, and then we will get out of here, okay? We won't do a commercial break because my mind is now on 9:00. So let's do a quick after show. We'll just roll right into it. Welcome, everybody, to our People of the Lie book review. You guys seem to be enjoying this series. I'm enjoying it as well. So I'm excited that we have some more content up ahead of us. So let's see. So I'll go ahead and ask this question on here. I asked this question on Twitter earlier, but would you guys be interested in like a weekly wrap up review of like the news? I would do them on like Fridays around 6 or maybe even 8. It would be like an evening thing, but where I basically just pull like the top news from the week and we just kind of talk about it. And it's not necessarily related to narcissism at all. Sure, if it pops out, of course, we'll talk about it, but it could just be what's happening. Let me know how you guys feel about that, what you think about that, because I want to bring you something on a more regular basis. And that would be kind of easy for me to do because it's just pulling articles and talking about it. But obviously we would have a discussion. It wouldn't just be reporting out, but just think about that. If y'all would like that, or maybe I should just do another channel, PTE News Break. What do y'all think? Anywho, I'm going to go through your comments really quick and we'll get out of here. Hey, I tried to read it. I tried to read that Fruit Loops. straight through. I think I made it, but I was definitely cracking up. They just slide. I call that the cheese sliding off the cracker. It just gone, gone, unwell. Exactly. It says see, and that's where they get you. That word salad can really throw you off if you don't have the wherewithal to hold in your mind what the original point was. Exactly. Oh, and that's such a skill to be able to sit there and just look at them while they're saying all this stuff. And then at the end of it, go, well, that's great, but that's actually not what I asked you. I asked you if you feel like you're getting some sort of fulfillment out of this marriage just as much as he is. I didn't ask you anything about fruit. So would you like to answer that question? That requires a certain presence of mind. I would commit them all. I would end up committing all my patients. They would say, PTE, you've referred out every single person we've sent to you this month, and you sent them all into the institution for 6 to 8 weeks. I'm like, yeah. What questions did you have? Is that a problem or puppy? It's okay, puppy. Poor baby. She'll be asleep. And then if I like shuffle paper or make any kind of like noise like that, she pops up out of that sleep, but she protects. That's the job. Good puppy. Yeah, the puppy knows Sarah's nuts. You know she's a fruitcake mama. It's okay, puppy. She's so cute. Let's see here. Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. It says therapists don't fix people, they facilitate the client's growth. Okay, I can agree. I can align with that. Because it really is about getting people to choose a different thought path. We don't want them to go back on a thought loop, but opening up different perspectives and different thought paths. But you know what I found? This is just going back to why I feel like I couldn't do it as a true career profession. The work that needs to be done is so extensive for most people. Now, this is going for most people. And the reason is because so many people have not truly been listened to for so long that in order to correct certain thought processes or belief systems or whatever, in order to correct them, it would take hours. And I'm serious. Like it would take 24 to 48 hours, not straight, obviously, but to work fully backwards through the issue would take hours of conversation because most of us have not been listened to for so long. So many people are holding in and holding on to so many layered issues. The issues are layered is what it is. That, man, it would take forever to break through. So I admire those therapists who can hang in there. I just wonder how do they decompress? Like, who does the therapist go to? Do they have trusted therapists? Do they have therapist friends? Like, how does this work? Let's see. Bingo. It says, why sell your soul? So that you aren't responsible anymore. The person who bought your soul is responsible. Bingo. And therein lies the evil, because it's taking the responsibility for your own life and handing it over to someone else and then leaning on oh, but they're so mean to me. Can't you see? Can't you see? It's like, yeah, but you totally handed that over to them though. So can you really be upset with them? Because you belong to them now. You're their object. So people do what they will with their property, don't they? Oh, that's deep. The person who bought your soul is responsible for you now. You're not responsible for it anymore. It says, I found similarities between the husband and cult members. It's kind of like, yeah, I know it's bad, but I can't really do anything. So I'm here. Like, I said this a few live streams ago, but I was saying that generally, like if I had a bad exit from a job, I generally don't keep in contact with the people left behind. Generally, like there's a rare few that I am still friends with, but in as a general rule, I don't, because to me, they are Hartleys, or as the comment illustrates on the screen, they have a lot of similarities to cult members. So, you know, even if they weren't high up in the food chain per se, having that connection to me, well, now they can funnel dirt back up to the higher ups, you see? So it's like, ooh, I can move up in the food chain if I just keep them informed on this person. That'll make me look really good and put me in their good graces. So I don't keep them informed at all. I've been known to even feed incorrect information. I know that's not very nice. And I know that's not honest, but at least I'm being honest about it. But I'm like, let me feed a fault. And it's what's the word? Harmless things. So if I get a phone call from a flying monkey or a text, they'll be like, hey, what are you up to? Where do you work now? You know, I'll just say, oh, I'm interviewing with, and just make up a fake company. Just make it up. So they'll run back to the crew. Oh, she's interviewing with blah, 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 you know? And what I'm looking to see is how long it takes to circle back to me through the grapevine for someone to be like, hey, heard you had an interview with blah, blah, blah. Good luck. I know some people over there. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that's dirty. I shouldn't do that. We should be honest in everything we do. But why would you be honest with dishonest people or people who don't mean you well? You know, truly, I should just not respond at all. I just should not reply. But I find that to be so rude that, you know, give them something to send them on a wild goose chase, you know? That's so mean. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Let's see here. Yep. For those who want to email me, you can email me at permission2exist@gmail.com. That's the number 2. You can email me. Let's see here. Right. They want a human pet. It says narcs want a human pet, not a spouse. They do. They want someone to just be so excited by them and impressed by them. In a human format, though, because humans are a little bit more useful. I can't tell if she's dreaming. Puppy. She's knocked out. Humans are a little bit more useful. You understand? So let's see. Oh, yeah, there's lots of these types. Not sure if you're talking about Sarah or Hartley, but there's lots of both. Both. Sometimes when I'm watching YouTube videos, I'll say to myself, ooh, I don't think this couple is going to last. You know, there's tons of like coupley type channels. And the couples that I don't think are going to make it long term, and I could be wrong, are the ones where it could be either or, the husband or the wife. But I will say I've seen this happen more to the men than the women. The guy will be explaining something. He'll be like, yeah, so we're going to head out to the storage unit today, and we're going to go ahead and see if we can clear out those 4. And then here comes the wife. Those 4 shelves that are sitting on the left-hand side of the corner, because the last time we were there, they were covered in sawdust, and we just said, we can't do all this now. So we're going to head over there. And I'm like, dang, he can't even finish his sentence, man. Why? Like, why is it so hard to just let people finish their sentence? And you can see the defeat on their faces when it happens, because it always happens more than once. And I can't tell you how many channels I've actually clicked off the video because of that. So one or the other is going to start explaining something, and I'm leaning in like, and they're just about to get to their point, and their spouse jumps in and finishes it. And all I can think to myself is, I don't see how they think that's cute. I don't find that cute at all. It's not cute. It's not fun or funny. Like, let the man finish his sentence, please. And it does happen in reverse, but I rarely see it happen in reverse on YouTube. I'm sure it happens in real life, no doubt. But he'll be like, yep, we're going to go down to the blah, blah, blah to pick up. Yep, we're going to go pick it all up and blah, blah, blah. Because remember that, honey? I'm like, God, some of these women are annoying, man. Listen, if I were a man, y'all, I think I would probably be asexual. And I mean that in the best way. I really do, because I find a lot of the behaviors that I see out of some women, not all, some, so annoying. I would rather just be by myself. I wouldn't be able to deal with all that talking, all that interrupting, the harpiness when they harp like kind of like Sarah was harping on Hartley. That's what I mean by harping. I just, I can't, I'd have to be alone. Because I think I would be an unkind man. I don't think I would be nice enough to sit back and be like, okay, that's the fourth sentence. You cut me off, Sarah. Like I feel like I would have more of a backbone, but I don't know how it would come out. I think it would be interpreted as mean. I don't know. I couldn't take it. I'd have to live alone. I would have to. The email to get these streams ahead of time is permission2exist@gmail.com. Permission2exist@gmail.com. I will shoot you an email right as I'm going live and after I upload videos. But yeah, I can't deal with the jumping in, swooping in as if I didn't know what I was going to say. I could see if I was like, you know how you guys know how I'm always forgetting words. So if I'm stumbling and bumbling, and I'm like, honey, what is that word that I'm trying to think of? And then they jump in. But it's like the person will clearly be flowing in their thought process and they just jump in and cut them off like midstream. Like I feel like that would make anyone crazy over time. Anyone. I'd have to live alone. Let's see here. Oh, interesting. It says this master-slave dynamic sounds like Vaknin's explanation of how a codependent who provides the right kind of supply can end up making the narc the codependent. And we've heard this many times before, where people say over time the codependent can become the narcissist. And maybe this is why. Maybe this is why it's so important for people to understand how to operate and stand on their own 2 feet. Because when you don't, you end up in one of these roles, and then over time the roles flip. So first you're the master, they're the slave, then it flips. They're the slave, or wait, then you become the slave, they're the master, and it just becomes this long-term relationship of codependence of 2 adults who don't know how to take care of themselves. Don't know how, don't want to, feel like it's someone else's job in one way or the other. So think about it like this. The master feels like it's the slave's job to take care of all their needs. And the slave feels like it's the master's job to provide them with like shelter, food, clothing, payment. So in many ways, both are still looking at someone else to do things for them. Does that make sense? So they're both dependent. Even though some might say, oh, the master's not dependent, they can just fire that slave and get another one. Yeah, but they're still dependent on the slave to do the things they won't do. You see? So there's a mutual dependency there. This is why it's so important to know how to be on your own for a while. I believe in family and marriage. I really do. But I still believe that every adult needs to spend at least 1 year alone in their own apartment or their own house. No, not renting a room. No, not with a roommate. By yourself, pulling in your own groceries by yourself, putting them up by yourself, cooking them by yourself, cleaning up after yourself by yourself, doing your own laundry, making your own bed, all of that stuff for at least 1 year, because you need to be able to appreciate those things, understand everything involved in them, and then you are a more competent partner for someone else who has done the same thing. So there won't be a lot of arguments like, hey, honey, I'm starving. I'm going to cook some Italian subs. Do you want some, or do you want me to make you something different? Oh, sure, babe. I'll have Italian subs. And then tomorrow night I'll make blah, blah, blah. Like they toss it back and forth. One night, one spouse cooks. The next night, the other spouse cooks. They don't really care. Some nights he'll make what he wants. He'll make what he wants. Yeah, that's correct, right? Yeah. And then other nights she'll make what she wants. And then other nights they will share the meal. There's not going to be a lot of arguments because these are two independent people who know how to take care of themselves. The only time they become dependent is when one or the other is down for the count, like somebody catches the flu or that other thing that's floating around, or maybe she has a baby. So she doesn't have one, she's not operating at 100% because she's recovering. So then that's when the other spouse takes over in a more aggressive caretaking role. But as the other person heals and comes back to normal, they go back to carrying their load, is what I'm saying. Everyone must carry their own load. You must. If you want to be successful in this life. See? Passiveness. It says, my grandfather is incredibly passive. He would let my grandmother be incredibly mean and toxic to my mother growing up. He never did anything, and his motto is keep the peace at any cost. Right. Just look the other way. Right. And you're seeing this a lot these days with a lot of people having the sentiment of, oh, things may not be perfect, but this is the best place on earth. Well, honey, if you keep looking the other way like that, things will never improve. Don't y'all ever want to see the flying cars and things like that? Like, don't we ever want to move past the iPhone? Like, isn't there a phone beyond the iPhone? Isn't there? Isn't there something we haven't thought of yet that could really improve our lives? Isn't the goal improvement? Isn't the goal to ultimately buy back as much of our lives as we can get? You know, so if you keep saying, well, things are great, you know, stop complaining, things are great. It's not a complaint. It's more of an observation of how we can really be the best. Like if you grow flowers, don't you want your flowers to like reach their full potential? Like what if all your flowers just became buds and then they just died? So they never open up. They never fan out. They never show you all their colors. They get right up to that bud stage and then they just fall over and die. You would feel like you're being cheated out of your flowers, would you not? So why are we comfortable with that same approach with life? Like we're comfortable with just reaching the bud stage and then it just falls over and dies. Like, well, we have the most beautiful buds on planet Earth. It's like, yeah, but those buds are supposed to be flowers. Do you ever want to see the flowers? Well, yeah, but the other countries don't even have buds. It's like, it's not about the other countries. We're not talking about what other people do in their house. We're talking about what we do in our house. Well, yeah, I mean, we want to see the flowers, but we have such beautiful buds. Why are you complaining? Because your buds never open. They fall off. That's why I'm complaining. Your buds never bloom. They fall off. That's why. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Oh, man. It says, good character can be corrupted by bad company. They are abusing one another. Absolutely. Yes. This is why it's okay to keep your distance. You know, like I was going to do a video on this, but having like even a fraction of self-respect and self-protection is going to have you like being alone a lot, you guys. I'm serious because we are scattered. By and large, I do believe there are more narcissists than non-narcs, and they clump and they group together. So you standing up for yourself and choosing not to be around bad character will have you on the outside of quote unquote the clique or the group more often than not. I want to be very honest about that with you guys. I don't want you to think that you're still going to be able to maintain your same levels of social status and have some dignity and self-respect at the same time. They generally don't go hand in hand. But again, going back to the pruning analogy, sometimes you have to cut off certain branches for the tree to thrive. You have to. You have to. Otherwise, eventually the whole thing will rot out. Let's see here. Right. It says, I find it interesting those who are offered a way out and don't take it, like not making effort with people that could help and think. Exactly. Exactly. And that's when you discover that it really truly is a situation by choice. For example, you all know that I've fled many jobs in the past, and I've always had at least one person, who I thought was going through a similar misery. And so I would apply to something and maybe get it. And so I would tell this person, this is back when I was still kind of naive. I would say, hey, listen, this company is hiring. You have the exact same skill set that they're looking for. Like, they're still looking for a couple of people. Put your application in. Like, I got the job. I'm going to take it. We can get out of here. Like, we can run, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. And the next thing you know, like, there's like, they stay until they're usually dismissed, downsized, layoffs, whatever. They stay until their abusers get through having fun with them, or they wear out their use value. And I'm like, why didn't you jump ship? And like, I get that everyone can't follow my moves. Like, my moves are serious. I make some serious moves that a lot of people are fearful of making. So I get that a lot of people don't move the way that I do. But at the same time, it's like, it becomes clear when I'm like, hey, I'll look at your resume with you. Do you want me to do a resume revamp? Do you want to do a practice interview with me? Like, I know what they're looking for. I cannot tell y'all how many people I have tried to free. Oh, I can't tell you how many people in my normal, just regular circles I see something in. Like, I see potential to build out like a whole YouTube channel / possible empire with these people. And I've approached them about it. I don't necessarily tell them about PTE, which might not be very fair, because then they don't think that I'm speaking from a place of experience. But I would think that the way that I approach them, something should tip them off and be like, dang, she's really passionate about this. And she sounds like she knows what she's talking about. Let me at least explore what she's talking about, right? Like, I'll give you a perfect example. There's a guy I know. Do you guys know who is it Marcus or Marquez Brownlee? I don't think it's Marcus. I think it might be Marquez or Marquez Brownlee. He does tech reviews. So like, when new phones come out, new computers, he does reviews. He has millions of subscribers. He's a millionaire himself. He started off on his own little channel. He built it up. Now he's huge endorsements, all that, right? So I know a guy that's into tech and knowledgeable about tech, just like Marcus. And I've approached this guy before, and I'm like, you need to start a YouTube channel. You have the personality for it. You have the complete look for it. You're so 2020. Your passion, your enthusiasm for it. You're funny. This person always has like random things happening to them. So he would be a perfect candidate for one of those people where he just walks around kind of with his camera all day. Because like, he's going to find the guy with the monkey on his shoulder down at the park. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to happen to him. And he's going to interact with the monkey. And now him and the monkey are friends. Like, 100%, like, I could put him on, and like, he just, nothing. Can't light that flame. Can't light a spark, man. God, I can't light a spark under some of these people. It's sad to me. Like, it's lonely. It's lonely, because it's like, I really want like another creator friend. I really do. But I'm surrounded by people I just I can't get that spark lit up under them. So anyway, I say all that as a response to this comment, which is people who are offered a way out and don't take it. Because there will come a day, I predict, where, oh, I'll give you the advice, but it's going to cost you a pretty penny. It's going to cost you. And I'll be charging people I've known my whole life. Yes, it's going to cost you money. Because there was a point in time where I offered it to you for free. You totally rejected it. Totally rejected it. Now it's going to cost you a lot of money to get the same advice. Let's see here. Because the way I look at it is, These same people often complain about their current state. So someone's offering you something different, something original, something unique, and they just just not interested. Content, totally content in their station in life. Content, never ran away. Let's see here. Don't get me started on that. I might have to write that book. The whole never running away thing. Let's see here. Absolutely. It said you can only do so much. Eventually, they have to help themselves. I learned that trying to get people out of a cult. Exactly. Like if someone's drowning and you're trying to save them and they just won't grab a hold of the life raft, they keep trying to grab a hold of you or whatever else, and they're pulling you into the water. Eventually, you have to stop trying to save them or you will drown too. And you're telling them, grab the raft, come on, please. We have to go. And at some point, you're either going to stay there and drown with them or you have to save yourself. But we do try to help, you know what I mean? But people have to make the decision to grab onto that life raft. They have to want it for themselves. Let's see. All right. We're going to wrap up here soon. Very, very soon. I appreciate you guys. The debate is tomorrow. The debate is not tonight. I apologize for those of you who thought that. I apologize for spreading fake news. Oh, man. So I'll save my wine for tomorrow then. I'll save it so I can watch it and laugh. Do you think they'll let us do a watch party? Are we allowed to broadcast the debate and watch it at the same time? And I think that would be entertaining. Let's see. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up, you guys. Thank you so much for joining. As always, I appreciate you guys. And we will get together again here pretty soon. We're almost through with chapter 3. I think we have one more segment in chapter 3, and then that will finally close out. Nope. Wait a second. Oh, wait. Yes. Oh my God. It's so long. Hold on one second. I think we have 3 more segments. So I might do some editing and make some executive decisions. It all depends. We have 3 more segments in chapter 3. So if I find them to be particularly riveting, we'll definitely share. But if not, we'll be moving off of chapter 3 pretty soon. Okay. But other than that, let me see. Is there anything else I needed to tell you guys? Nothing I can think of. Yeah. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the debate tomorrow. I'll see if we can broadcast it. If we can do a watch party. I don't see why not. I've seen other channels do it, but you know how that goes. But other than that, have a great week, you guys. I appreciate you guys coming out, and we will talk again very, very soon. Bye.